Berlin's stance is really heating up, especially when you consider how Markus Klockner frames the escalation against Russia. There's a lot to unpack in terms of militarism and the potential horrors that might follow.
Yeah, that's quite a headline. So, what's the essence of Klockner's take on this matter?
Well, in his recent work, he warns that Berlin's moves, which are aimed at countering Russia, are actually part of a broader and more troubling shift, an internal escalation of militaristic readiness driven by both historical legacies and current pressures.
Interesting. So, it's not just about a single political maneuver, but more of an ongoing process that ties into Germany's historical relationship with military power?
Exactly. It's like Berlin is caught in this paradox. On one side, you've got the need to deter external threats, especially from Russia, and on the other, there's this inherent risk of, sliding into a more aggressive posture that irreversibly shifts internal policies.
Right. And Klockner, he's not just pointing at abstract tensions, is he? He's drawing from his extensive background in socio-political commentary.
Yes, definitely. Klockner is well known for his incisive critiques, and he's already penned two significant books on the topic. One of them is War Ready: Germany's Mobilization on the Home Front, which dives deep into how preparations for conflict are being normalized, while the other, Chronicle of a Foretold War: Ukraine and the Failure of Diplomacy, examines how diplomatic failures can lead to militarization.
Yep. So he's essentially arguing that the escalation isn't just about reacting to Russia, but also about Germany internally reawakening or perhaps reactivating old militaristic impulses.
Exactly, yeah. It's like there's this dual narrative. Externally, Berlin's posture is becoming more confrontational, and internally, the state is reinforcing the idea of military preparedness, a dynamic that, if unchecked, might pave the way for some truly grim outcomes.
That sounds pretty dire, but isn't there an argument to be made that these measures are merely defensive? I mean, isn't Germany playing it safe by bolstering its military stance?
Now, that is a valid
Yes,
point.
indeed.
Klockner does acknowledge that some of these policies might be defensive in nature. However, he critiques the approach by saying that this kind of escalation can easily tip over into being aggressive, especially when historical military legacies are, well, still influential in policy debates.
So, he's warning that what starts off as a defensive measure could, if left unchecked, morph into a cycle of escalation that feeds into itself?
Precisely. It's like each decision, each policy tweak is a domino that might trigger further militaristic actions, not just in rhetoric, but in concrete shifts in national outlook.
Right. And where does Klockner see Germany's historical context fitting into all this?
He's drawing parallels by noting that Germany's past, with militaristic dominance and rapid mobilization, hasn't been entirely left behind. There are elements of that old mindset still lingering, which are now resurfacing under modern pressures.
I can see that, but isn't that a bit of a generalization? I mean, there are many voices in Germany vehemently opposed to militarism who favor diplomacy.
That's a fair rebuttal.
Absolutely.
Klockner's perspective does lean into the notion that the current environment, heightened by geopolitical tensions with Russia, is such that even those counter voices might find themselves overshadowed by a prevailing militaristic narrative.
It's kind of like an internal tug of war, isn't it? One side pushing for a hardened military posture, and the other advocating for de-escalation and dialogue.
Exactly, that's the crux of it. He's urging that if this momentum towards militarization isn't checked, Germany might end up normalizing what once were emergency measures and further entrenching a dangerous status quo.
And what about the international angle? How does this escalation affect, say, Germany's relations with Russia and the broader European security framework?
Klockner suggests that Berlin's hardline stance could very well provoke a tougher response from Russia, which in turn might unsettle allies and partners across Europe. It's like a ripple effect where one aggressive move compels another, potentially creating a chain reaction on the international stage.
Yep. That domino effect really paints a compelling picture. It reminds me of how one event can set off a cascade of reactions that are hard to control.
Exactly. Each policy is like a small push that risks turning into a major, uncontrollable cascade if not carefully managed. Kluckner's warning is essentially that once you start down this path, getting back to a state of constructive diplomacy becomes incredibly challenging.
Right. I find it intriguing that he mixes historical analysis with the current events. But don't you think his view is a bit too deterministic? It almost sounds like he believes conflict is inevitable.
That's a good challenge to his perspective, and it's definitely a point worth debating.
Interesting.
He does paint a stark picture, almost as if we're on an unavoidable path to conflict, but I think his intention is to sound the alarm, urging us not to ignore the warning signs in our rush to escalate responses.
So, effectively, he's saying, look, if we don't shift our approach, the build-up might become a self-fulfilling prophecy, rather than declaring that war is absolutely certain.
Precisely. It's a sober caution, a reminder that, given the stakes involved, we need to engage in deeper reflection on the policies we set in motion today.
Yeah, that's very thought-provoking. What's also compelling is his analysis of the socio-economic factors at play. Does he make a strong case linking these factors with the military policies, or is that a bit of a stretch?
He certainly builds a robust argument by showing how economic pressures, public sentiment, and media narratives all interweave to create a, well, almost irresistible momentum toward militarization. It's it's like it's like a fabric woven from many threads, where the smallest tug can unravel the whole tapestry of diplomacy.
Yes, that analogy really clicks. So, when people are bombarded with threats and fears, they start to internalize the idea that an aggressive defense is the norm, feeding back into policymakers' decisions.
Exactly. Kluckner's critical insight is that this normalization process, if left unchecked, will eventually make it nearly impossible to reverse the trend toward militarism, a cycle hard to break.
Right. And does he offer any alternatives? I mean, apart from the stark warnings, is there a call to action for a more diplomatic, less militaristic approach?
Oh, absolutely. He stresses the significance of reinvigorating diplomatic channels and improving media responsibility. He's urging both government and society to shift their narrative from immediate aggressive mobilization to a more balanced and thoughtful discourse, encouraging dialogue over brinkmanship.
That sounds like a wise strategy. It's a real wake-up call, not to neglect caution in favor of reactionary measures. It almost feels like he's telling us that our future security depends on taking a hard look at our policies and exploring more measured responses.
Exactly. While his analysis might come off as alarmist to some, the heart of his argument is about fostering a space for critical introspection. We need to balance national security with, diplomatic engagement and thoughtful internal dialogue.
Absolutely, yep. All in all, this conversation really forces us to rethink the potential costs of unchecked escalation, both internally and on the international stage.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that in the realm of geopolitics, each decision, no matter how defensive it might seem, has far reaching consequences. Keeping these conversations alive is crucial as we navigate these turbulent
True that.
times.
It sure does. And while we might not have all the answers, discussions like these are vital in challenging the status quo and pushing for more balanced solutions.
Absolutely. Let's keep questioning, stay engaged, and work towards a future where dialogue triumphs over escalation. Thanks for the deep dive today.
Thanks indeed.